there at a candy shop. I was selling candy and cookies. A bunch of teenage children was there spending money with me all the time. I'm doing fine. All right, here comes the city. They condemn the place and tow it down. We's up there tolling me now.
Downtown is building up and is pushing people out. And it's being done by design. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about...
That's a bunch of malarkey. Nobody plans the use of another man's property in Houston. There's no zoning board. The planning commission merely determines where utilities and streets are located. Nobody has planned what to do with somebody else's property.
I want to understand what forces are at work, that's all. So I think that if we all know what forces are at work, we can at least prepare in some way to make some decisions about our own lives.
Mic tap. Mic tap. Second mic tap.
Last year I got one of those open-ended assignments that you look forward to all your life. Go out and make a film, they said. Make any film you like. Now I wondered about this city we live in. Big, booming, and the forces that seem to shape it. What fascinated me about these forces was that I didn't see them. I didn't know how they worked. Why, for instance, on one side of this freeway were big modern buildings, and on the other side there were dilapidated pawn shops in a rundown neighborhood. I decided that if I was to find out about forces, this was a good place to start. The idea was simple. Find out what I could, then put it on TV. As I pushed my van into the 4th Ward, I had the same fear anyone has going into a foreign country for the first time. Though I had driven by many times on my way from downtown to River Oaks, now I was going in.
The question is, where do we start? In order to find out about the 4th Ward and living in the 4th Ward, who'd I go see? Who should I go? What kind of people should I go see? What places should I go?
You're in the right place now. You're talking to somebody, somebody live around in the world.
I know. I mean, what other kind of people? What other places should I visit?
Go to church. Yeah. Talk to one of them preachers. That sounds odd, but that's about right.
Why'd you say that?
So you'd be one. Would there be another?
Me, a businessman. Public business, because he deals with the public. You have to be with somebody in public, but really you'd get your best information in the street like you started. Because there are people that have good opinions in the street that have never had a chance to speak.
Well, it's a church on every other corner, anytime. From every corner, it's a church.
Church and a bar.
A church and a bar.
Right.
The bar on this corner, church on the next corner. That's in the whole community, Which they have nothing to do but go to church and to the bar,
That's your pleasure.
That's
right there.
Right.
Pleasure.
Right.
The church. The church.
And then that's why
cleans itself.
Black people so deep off into the church is because this church is,
they don't go to the bar.
Yeah, they don't go to the bar.
They don't go to the bar.
And it's a church right on the corner, so they just go to the church.
I didn't think people would talk to us, but they did. They had no reason to. Weren't they just putting us on? 3 white jerks with a camera parachuting in for 10 minutes, asking for the truth in 20 seconds, and then dashing back to their middle-class neighborhoods. Why wouldn't they put us on? But underneath the comedy routine, I thought I heard another message trying to get through.
You have to just hope like hell and pray.
Now, what you have in the bar on the corner and the church on the other corner, then that you don't know which one you want to get off into.
To and from the church, you got to either pass by that bar or that church.
Yeah.
And some children they'll make that decision, and some of them won't. And so,
stop
what
in
you
here
got?
and get me a soda water and end up drinking a beer.
That's right. Ain't gonna do you no good. 3 out of 5, 2 of them go to church, and the other 3 go in the bar. See, so but what can you expect? That's all they get. That's all activities they got.
My relatives, my mother's people, as well as my father's people, primarily grew up in this neighborhood. In early 40s, we saw Fourth Ward being made up in basically totally black, and also we saw that there was a number of people who was just about all kinds of culture. There was school teachers, there was doctors, there were the very poor, as well as the middle class as we knew it in that day in terms of blacks. But now in the 60s and the 70s, we have watched those people migrate out into other neighborhoods who are in changing neighborhoods like South Park, like in totally lily white neighborhoods, or moved into other places like Los Angeles or other metropolitan cities, and their children, particularly after they had gotten a certain age, has moved out. So we see now nothing but the very poor.
Take for instance, if you and I was in high school together, say we dropped out in the same grade, and we go down to what's a good company go, Hughes Tools, and both fill out the application, have the same kind of qualifications, which is nothing, right? Because we dropped out, right? Okay. Who you think they'd get a job to first? Me or you? Just take it. After you play, then you tell me the answer. Tell me about it. I want your own honest opinion about it. Shit. Look at us. We try like hell, and sometimes as hard as you try, it still don't help. And so you have to keep on trying. And see, some people, like I said earlier, a lot of people around here just waiting to die. Just look around you. They're waiting to die. Look what they're living in. Huh? Rat houses, roaches. I can't even sit on my front porch, man. A roach crawl over my leg. They that bold. See? I've seen rats down there big as my hand, and some of the people in here hand. I mean, they don't care, you know. The mosquitoes, they eat us up. They don't care. I mean, what's going on?
That's what I'm saying. You know, the rats and the roaches and the people, you know, change. I mean, hell.
You asking for a change, right? What changes? Them some of the change you need. I would like to see you live in Fourth Ward or Fifth Ward for a week, 2 weeks at the most. I wonder how long you would last.
Really? Exchange student. Exchange student from another country.
The people of Fourth Ward, they really don't want to be in the situation that they're in, but they feel that they are locked in. They've been in this predicament so long till they've even become to feel satisfied, and which is not the truth, because if they were, they wouldn't have to get up in the morning looking for a bottle of wine, looking for something to sustain them throughout the day. Every person practically here around here that you get up, the first thing they want is a drink. You see, that shows that they can't rely upon themselves. They are not stable. There's something wrong. Something is a disturbance in their mind. They're not satisfied.
My God, I'm going home. I'm going home.
Someone said you should make a film about another country after 3 days, or else it would take 3 years. I had 8 weeks, and Fourth Ward looked like it would take forever.
All across the country, if you notice, you know, in all major cities, the downtowns are deteriorating. That it's considered unwise to invest money in downtown, in Chicago or in Detroit or in Cleveland, in Memphis. You know, businesses are moving out. Okay, but here in Houston, you got a different system altogether.
Growing, and I think that's marvelous. We're saving our city.
I was sitting around spinning my wheels wondering if I should make this story or even if it was worth making when my wife said I should meet this black reporter who'd done a radio show on the Fourth Ward. I did, and he said that the Fourth Ward was the biggest story in town. What he began to tell me, I could hardly believe.
Downtown is building up and is pushing people out, and it's been done by design. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you got Houston Center moving toward Third Ward, and you got One Allen Center moving in on Fourth Ward, and people are being pushed away. They're being pushed out under the guise of progress. And I don't think that what's good for Houston is necessarily good for the people of Houston.
The point that you're making, in other words, is that Houston wants to grow at all cost, and that growth is this expansion out, which in effect then the inner city is being kind of neglected.
But purposefully being neglected. Purposefully being neglected. Because any time that you have a system at work where city services are bad, where landlords do not improve property, then that area is destined to become a slum. and it's right around, the inner city, 4th Ward, 5th Ward, and 3rd Ward. So what happens is with these landlords disinvesting in property, the city not providing proper city services, houses are condemned, people are forced then to move out into another slum, and then the land value goes up, it's sold, and the city expands. What you have is a plan that people don't know about, that manipulates and moves them, in and out of certain areas. And they don't even know that, the forces are at work. That's what makes it a conspiracy.
The word conspiracy bothers me. I see that as a kind of a loaded word, and there may be forces at work. I mean,
a conspiracy seemed like an incredible thing to me. It was just not something I was brought up to believe.
In a conspiracy. Well, a conspiracy, it means something.
I could even call it a spade. I mean, you're talking about really, you're talking about land over there that's worth billions of dollars, and that's exactly what brings on conspiracies. If we were talking about, some little development that, meant something like $500,000, then it wouldn't bother me. I wouldn't use that word.
Yeah, but look, I mean, the city has to grow, it seems, and to provide for the people, its people. Well, why call that a conspiracy? I mean, given the system we're dealing with, we've got to, there are certain steps that they're only, that the city can take.
Every time I opened my mouth, almost nothing came out. I was faced with the fact that I knew almost nothing about my city or what went on in it. And there I was, confronted with someone who seemed absolutely sure of what he was saying.
But let me ask you this. What makes you, Tom Wright, an authority as a spokesman for 4th Ward, or someone who is can deal with that? Why are you so concerned with
little people? Little people who have their homes in, say, an area like a 4th Ward. And I told you the thing that touched me about that area was one Christmas, when I was driving down that little street, and all these little dilapidated houses, and I came across one house, and there was this little fence around it, and there was a tinsel on the window that said, Merry Christmas, and God bless this home. There's a person inside that house. But that person has nothing at all to say about how this city grows, doesn't have anything to say about his or her own destiny. And that's really frightening. It should frighten everybody when we realize just how little it is that we have to say about growth.
That was in that
Tom spoke with such conviction that it seemed to take total possession of his whole being. If things were as Tom said, why didn't anyone else know?
I was really thinking about
Before, I was afraid I'd find out nothing. Now I was afraid of what I'd find out. It was like in a detective story where someone's sick and then you're told that person's being slowly poisoned. It sounds possible, but you need proof. Tom said he'd show us. 4th Ward was sick. There was somebody killing it. In the next 3 episodes, you're going to see it just about as it happened. Then maybe you can make up your own mind. I need to go over it again in order to make up mine.
Barbecue. This is barbecue brisket.
Brisket?
Uh-huh.
And what do you put in the sauce?
My sister made sauce. I don't know.
I haven't talked to anybody that knows what goes in that sauce. So this gentleman here can tell us what's in the sauce.
What's on what?
You know what's in the barbecue sauce?
No, I don't know what's in the barbecue sauce, but it smells awful good. Yeah, it smells awful good.
What's it like here in the 4th Ward now, on the 4th of July? What do you feel people are facing conditions?
It's bad condition on account of the streets in here. See, this water seeps up under these people's houses. And it seeps from that big sewage line there and comes around up under there. See, the meter's not running. If it was a broken line, the meter'd be running.
How long has this been going on?
Oh, about 3-4 weeks.
Was this
a poor neighborhood?
Oh, this used to be a kind of a rich neighborhood through there. Well-livers is what it is. Well-livers.
And it was always black, wasn't it?
Yeah, black used to own everything in here, all the way clear on down to Foleystown.
Tell me about what happened.
Sold it out.
Why?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. A lot of people sold out and moved on out for that.
There used to be a grocery store there, and there used to be some little houses along here, but they condemned them, and so then they tore them all down.
You know, one of the things that enters my mind, why these rows of these small houses? I guess they're shotgun houses. How did those come about?
Well, shotgun shacks originated during the period of Reconstruction, right after slavery. And the reason that they call them shotgun shacks is because people can take a shotgun and shoot straight down the middle of the house without touching, any door, any wall. Blast will go through the front door and really right out the back.
Well, who built them like that?
Well, black people built them because that was the only kind of housing that they were used to. Said it happened during, right after Reconstruction. And during slavery days, those were the kinds of houses that blacks lived in. So consequently...
Well, it was nice to know the history behind those houses, but for all I knew, the city of Houston might be planning to put the Fourth Ward on their guided tour and sell ice cream. What we needed was evidence. I wanted to know what it was like to live in one.
I think the people that own these houses and things charge high-priced rent should fix these houses up.
How much do you pay?
I pay $55 a month, plus all my utility bills and all their expenses. But if the health inspector would come out here to see this house, they would probably more likely condemn this house. It's not, my bathroom floor in there, if you walk on the bathroom floor, it's almost about to fall. It doesn't have a trap up under my bathtub up there. And the porch is in bad, condition. The wiring of the house is bad. You go out there and cut that meter off, and the lights will not go out in these wiring. And I understand I can get that the rent man is supposed to fix this, to get an electrician to fix this here. And that's fire hazard.
I was just going to say, aren't you afraid that you burn up in here one of these days?
Yeah, I am afraid that it will catch a fire and things that start like this here. I think that it needs to be cleaned up from rats, And I guess last year I had a red big rat in my house last year, and we finally killed it with some poison. But the rats just don't do that. They comes in from the outside like this vacant lot. Because I sit here, I think it was Sunday, and a rat just came through my screen door.
Just walked out?
Mm-hmm. So it needs a lot of clearing up.
What happens when you talk to the landlord?
Well, this is the report that I'm getting from my landlord. When I ask my landlord to have certain things fixed in my house, I have to pay for it myself because the lady owns this house. Says she's not going to spend no more money on this house.
Why do you suppose they won't do anything?
That I couldn't say. I know that they understand that the lady said that she wasn't going to spend any more money on this house.
Why don't landlords fix this place up? Tom said this was a part of the plot. They were letting the houses run down, the people would be forced out, the land would be cleared, business would move in, and the landlords would make a big killing.
My father owned some in there since about 1912. Myself, I believe it was about 1930.
You grew up in the Fourth Ward?
Yes. Where did you work? Where? It's called the Buckland West Alleys.
How did your family acquire, this 100 to 150 units there in Fourth Ward?
Well, by working hard, sacrificing, and being economical, making good investments.
It's our understanding that some meetings have been held among large landowners like yourself and downtown business interests trying to, who want to block up large sections of Fourth Ward.
Well, if so, I don't know anything about it. I haven't been approached. And I think if anybody wanted to buy, there's a world of vacant stuff in Fourth Ward that they can buy. Vacant land.
most of your property in large enough blocks where, say, a big investor would want to buy it, or is it just sort of piecemeal around the ward?
Well, it's pretty well piecemealed around the ward. It's not, say, a block or half a block. It's just piecemealed around.
I wonder where those kinds of rumors start, you know, because we were told that you had been in on some of the meetings that had been held.
No, have I know anything about it? I'll tell you this. It isn't a week go by that one of the tenants tell me that they're going to buy it out, we're going to have to move. In fact, I had a lady renting from me that I've been knowing since I was a kid, and she told me, says, we're going to have to move. I says, well, if you're going to have to move, I don't know why. She said, well, they're going to buy it out. And she moved. And she went to Third Ward and then come back, wanted her same house back. So I told her, I said, Margie, I says, you know, I know you too long. I said, to mistreat you. I said, you know, I wouldn't mistreat you anyway. So she came back, wanted the same house back.
Do you feel that same amount of care and concern about most of the people who rent from you?
I do. I was raised with 95% of them that lives in that neighborhood. I grew up from a kid. When we moved there, I was 8-year-old.
You know, other landlords in the area, you know, some of the tenants say that they don't call them landlords, they call them slumlords, you know, people who don't want to reinvest in their property.
Well, most of our stuff, you can go up on Buckner Street there, all along up in there, and most 95% of our stuff is pretty well painted outside and well taken care of. Some needs painting on the outside, but it's well taken care of on the inside.
Well, how do you feel, though, about other landlords, say, in the ward who don't take care of their tenant property?
I'd like to see it all taken care of. I do.
What would be the reasons why people wouldn't take care of it, the landlords?
Well, I'll tell you this. The income is mighty small. This is the lowest income property in the city of Houston for its rental purpose. And you can't hardly cut too much of it out. They're just, the type of people that are there just don't have that kind of money. They're mostly all on relief or Social Security or welfare or something like that. They just don't have money to pay the right amount of rent.
So much of the land seems to be owned by Italians. Could you tell us how that is?
Well, in them years gone by, they all had little corner grocery stores, and as they accumulate a few dollars and somebody wanted to sell their property, they bought it because it's right around their neighborhood, right around their place of business. And it went on from there. That's where it started from.
So is that a community where Italians settled in Houston?
Well, quite a few Italians, yes. I'd say other than about 2 stores out there, they were all mostly owned by Italians.
You say that they were starting sort of just like these people. They were in the same position?
Same position, maybe poor.
Could you tell me something about that?
Well, all right, take my father. He came here, and he had worked in a coal mine and accumulated a few $1,000s and came here and went into business. All right, he struggled and sacrificed and saved and did everything he could to accumulate $1, and as he got $1 and somebody wanted to sell a house, he would try to buy it. And it just went on through.
Why did they pick the 4th Ward when they came?
Well, the language barrier was one thing, that they could understand each other. My father couldn't speak English, but as well, he could speak a little English, not much. And they could make signs to each other, and I want this and I want that, and he'd just look at the price, and they just would go head on and do business, till eventually he learned how to speak English and read English. Then it went right on through.
So you would say that the Italians were in those days in the same position as the blacks?
Just as bad, and maybe worse.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Just as bad or maybe worse.
What would you say accounted for the difference in, say, the Italians now owning the land and blacks owning nothing?
Well, all right, I'll say this. Because one sacrificed, did without, and tried to accumulate something for an older age. And a lot of your people, happy-go-lucky people, and just live for today and not tomorrow. Now, this is my view of it.
4th Ward was a proud community once. It may look ratty and run down now, but the oldest of those houses had been built by freed slaves. In the late 20s, the city fathers drew a line around a small section of downtown and said that's where all blacks must stay. Fourth Ward was in the heart of that section. If you're a black born in Houston and over 40 years old, chances are you came from the Fourth Ward. Now it was dying.
Well, it ain't nothing I can say, but some leading people need to have a meeting and kind of straighten this thing out. It's pitiful the way we are.
What's so pitiful about it?
Huh?
What's so pitiful about it? What makes it so pitiful?
It's pitiful the way we suffer. It's nothing. I walked this street and there were so many people in this ward until it's pitiful. They say, excuse me.
When was that?
Excuse me, getting by one another. Now, they have done Fourth Ward so bad until don't nobody want to be out here. When did you ever thought about a building was going to be in the middle of West Dallas down there? Building in there taller than the Rice Hotel.
Does what is happening to Fourth Ward in terms of, say, like the building down there in West Dallas, does that bother you at all, what downtown is doing to Fourth Ward?
Downtown building, well, they don't have no business. They tore everything down, built speedways and everything, and the people what was out here was making a little living, but they can't make now because they tore all of the buildings down. It's pitiful.
Who do you blame?
I was over there, across the street, had a little shining parlor, and I was doing well. I had a Victrola, I had a pool table, I had my soda water machine, a shining stand, and I was doing fine. Condemned the place and knocked it in the head, and I'm got to go anywhere I can. I had to sell my little stuff and get over there.
Did that make you mad?
Huh?
Did that make you mad? Did that make you mad?
Didn't make me mad, but it made me, put me in bad shape. I can't make a living hardly. I ain't got no way to make a living. I was making a living over there. My Victrola was taking in $25, $30 a week. My soda water machine selling 15, 20 case soda water a week. And Victrola was taking in money. I was shining shoes. I was doing all right. I had a little counter there with a candy shop. I was selling candy, cookies. A bunch of teenage children was there spending money with me all the time. I done fine. All right, here come the city. Say condemn the place and tow it down. We's up there taller than me now. I ain't had no way to go since.
Like that. This is July 12th, in the evening. Tom Wright's just come in very concerned about something regarding Antioch Church, and we wanted to put it on film. All right, Tom, what happened?
The situation last night.
What happened last night?
Well, there was a meeting at the Wheeler Street YMCA. 5 people were there, and 5 people other than myself. And basically, it was an attempt to get some kind of consensus on what was going to happen to Antioch. And he told me that they had pretty much, when I say they, I'm talking about the forces at work in the city, Hoffines and the people at the chamber, that they had decided that nothing was going to be done, that Antioch, the fate of Antioch had been decided one way or the other, and that regardless what the people at Antioch thought about it, it didn't matter. Because if they could not get the church through the lease agreement, that they were going to impose the law of eminent domain, that the only way that Fourth Ward is ever going to be developed is that Antioch goes, and that they be allowed to jump the freeway
with their building.
Right. The whole thing lets you know how the system works. They do what they want to do anyway. And then they don't take into consideration, the rights of anybody other than themselves. And I think that's the frustrating part about, the whole Fourth Ward situation, that nobody else matters. Nobody matters except what, the people downtown, the multimillionaires in conjunction with the people at City Hall want. And they'll do anything at all possible to do it.
Antioch was the emotional sore spot for Tom. He saw it as proof that business was attempting to drive black people out. And he wasn't the only one who believed that. The Allen Center was trying to purchase the 28,000 square feet of land that Antioch owned inside the Allen Center property, and the black congregation was split between selling or staying. Some people thought they ought to put up a fight.
Antioch.
Yes.
We're at a time when there's discussion that Antioch will be sold. Could you tell us about that? And what do you think that will mean for the Fourth Ward?
Well, not long ago, there was a group of Negro youngsters. Now, I don't know from whence they came, but they were outside of the church and they handed out a sheet. And the sheet was begging the parishioners and the pastor of Antioch not to sell their land. In essence, it said, if Antioch goes, Fourth Ward goes. So this is probably some of the meat of the coconut of this pressure to sell. If Antioch is a light, a beacon light to people in Fourth Ward, they really figure if Antioch goes, then there will be no hindrance for all of Fourth Ward to go. Antioch is standing in the way of acquiring all of Fourth Ward. Negroes will have nothing to look to in Fourth Ward if Antioch is sold. And I think people know this. I think if they can acquire Antioch, then there will be a clean sweep. I understand there are many financiers from the east who come in and look at that property, and pretty soon they intend to acquire it.
What do you intend to try to do about it?
Well, there's very little I can really do about it. I realize that because, you see, I'm very poor, and the people who are trying to acquire it, let's just face reality, they are very rich. And it's just like David, he had everything, he was king, but he saw one little man's wife over there that he just had to have. With all of his riches, he had to have this one little item that was really off limits to him. So I think that they have all of this land and all of this money, but now this is just one little fly in the ointment. We have to have Antioch.
Could you tell me what you see happening now in what's the future hold for Antioch?
Well, the future of Antioch is related to the whole process of change within the whole spectrum of a growing metropolitan area, which is growing almost far beyond anyone's expectations, to the point that within just a very few months and years, this is probably going to be one of the largest cities in the world. And so in the process of all of that change, where does a relatively small black congregation fit into that whole schema? The reality is that when one begins to think about change, there are, first of all, those persons who are the agents of change, those persons who are in decision-making positions with regard to how change is going to take place. I'm of the opinion that some very critical decisions were made about the future development of this downtown area some 25 years ago. In the early 1940s, the city of Houston and whatever federal and state agencies might have been involved made a decision that there would be an interstate freeway system that would go through the heart of downtown Houston. Interstate 45, which runs now from Dallas all the way through down to the coastline of Texas in Galveston, goes within only a stone's throw of the Antioch Church building. With the erection of that freeway, the development of the whole interstate freeway system in our backyard, so to speak, what happened was a psychological as well as a physical barrier was erected, which separated the church primarily from the people that it served.
It's very likely that the progress downtown will just move right on into that area.
The growth of downtown Houston is going to be like a spreading cancer that is already metastasized. There's no way to stop it.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's, how can you tell? You know, I'm not sure that I can really deal with that question. We'll only know whether it was good or bad, 15 years from now. The point is that 15 years ago, nobody thought enough of the decisions that were being made to put about or to start the preventative measures from seeing what was going to happen.
Who made those decisions 15 years ago?
I'm not sure who made them. There are the standard agencies which make decisions about the way in which cities grow. Your city planning department, your city council, the mayor, whoever are the community residents who permit this kind of thing to happen. There are many people who are involved in the decision-making process, and unfortunately the people who are now living in Allen Center will be the victims of the decisions that have already been made.
So where the hell are we going with this film? I mean, it seems to me that all we're doing is shooting interviews. All we've got is this talking head material. And although what we may be doing is laying down information about the Fourth Ward, laying down material which describes what it's like, the problems of the people that live there, and some of the opinions of some of the people that have interests in there, like the few home owners that are still left and the landlords that make money out of it. It seems to me that we've got more than enough of that material. The time has come now to really get on into the dangerous part of the film and find out who are behind some of the major kind of interests in Houston, the large corporate entities of which it's so difficult to find anything about, and who are the heads of those corporate entities, and what their plans are for Houston, and whether or not, in fact, they do have plans for Houston. And are they simply making money for themselves, or do they feel that the good of Houston is going to come at the end of all this? Is there a conspiracy or not? Is there a conspiracy on the part of big business to, as someone said in the film, to feather their own nest at the expense of minorities such as blacks in the Fourth Ward who have no way of defending them? The problem of Antioch Church sitting in the middle of all those car parks. If it falls, if it's knocked down in the path of the Allen Center development, does that mean in turn that Fourth Ward is going to fall as well? And if it does fall, does it matter? I mean, are we answering these questions? All we're doing is just looking and describing what's there. We're not actually drawing any conclusions.
We don't have anybody really in situation. We just have a lot of interviews right now.
We've got a lot of people who are going to have things done to them, but we haven't got anybody that's going to actually do it.
I felt the same fear I'd felt going into Fourth Ward, but this time with good reason. If Tom was right and there was a conspiracy, then what the hell were we doing charging downtown into the den of the conspirators? Why should we expect them to give us a straight answer? On the other hand, if Tom wasn't right, we were going to make ourselves look like asses. What do? Charge up to a guy and say, hey, are you part of a plot? There's no way we were going to find the right question.
Provided, of course, that
obviously Houston is going to grow outward. I'm wondering what is going to happen to say some of the people who live in the areas that immediately surround the downtown area.
The history of the pattern in Houston has been that as development from the core moved out, that the older housing, which is not really standard housing, substandard housing in most instances, is replaced further out. by new and modern housing, or better housing than they now have. And the history has been that prices of properties close in increase, and the people move outside to buy more house with the same money. Now this is particularly true, I think, in the early 50s and beginning in the early 50s, I should say, of property acquired by eminent domain for freeway construction in the near downtown area. Virtually all of the people who lived in what was primarily substandard housing in those areas moved out into better housing. May not have been first-class housing, but it was better than they had. And this has been our history. And I think you'll see as the pattern of the development continues that the people who live there will move into better housing. Some of the highest priced housing in town is slum housing nearby.
Like down in Fourth Ward.
Well, you named it. I didn't, but some of it is priced at more per room and per square foot than luxury apartments are renting for. And the costs are just tremendous when you equate it to the amount of space that's occupied. And this is one reason that some of the slumlords who own some of this property are reluctant to tear it down. And they don't want to improve it. They just want to keep it going as it is. What really should be done is that the tax levy should be made based on what they think their property is worth, the underlying land is worth. That'll make the slum unprofitable. And you'll see better buildings built on present location, and you'll see the people who are now the victims of these high rents move into better housing at the same amount of money or less.
Well, one of the things that we've heard just investigating this whole thing about the growth of Houston is that one of the reasons some of the slumlords don't want to do anything about their property is that they're waiting, that they're speculators in essence, that they're waiting for downtown to jump the freeway and Antioch Church to be sold. And
well, Antioch Church is inside the freeway.
Yeah.
And Antioch Church, I think, is a thing all by itself. It has already received the enhanced value. The membership of that church, though, is certainly diminished because of the clearance of the Cullen Center and the Allen Center and the Civic Center property, which just a few years ago were totally occupied by substandard dwelling. But leaving Antioch Church out of it completely, I think you'll find that the land values already are there. The tax collector is just a little behind on his tax collection. He's working in River Oaks and Montrose and ignoring the fact that the nearby property, which is occupied by poor people, is owned by wealthy people who are paying far less than their share of taxes.
But eventually, Fourth Ward will become a part of downtown, do you think?
Well, there's no question of it. And if the proper tax were put on it, it would happen pretty fast. It will happen.
One of the minister of Antioch Church said that plans had already been made 10 years ago for what would be done with the area of Antioch in the Fourth Ward. What's your answer to that?
By whom?
By the powers that be. City planning, city, by business, that.
That's a bunch of malarkey. Nobody plans the use of another man's property in Houston. There's no zoning board. The Planning Commission merely determines where utilities and streets are located. Nobody has planned what to do with somebody else's property. Certain economic forces indicate, as I said a moment ago, and I think it's absolutely an assured fact, that it will become downtown. But it's not because anybody planned or conspired or has done anything. It's because the land is where it is, and because economic forces say it's too valuable for slum housing, it's too valuable for single-family residential dwellings.
How could you describe those economic forces?
Just the pure fact that Houston is growing and the downtown grows, and it's not manufacturing any new land. So it has to move out. And as it moves outward, there are buyers who say, I can use that land and I can pay more than it's worth for its present use. And it's not because of any plan. Nobody is planning. The powers that be don't exist. They are the economic forces.
If this was a conspiracy, it was out in the open. Welch's answers were completely plausible. The city was growing, and buyers could use that land for something else. But as sensible as that sounded, one could still ask whether or not it should happen.
My grandfather.
Beautiful house.
He was was G.A. Reeves, a contractor in the city. He first brought a 3-room house, that's the portion you see there, to the property. And then he and his sons added on, and now we have our 3-bedroom home. And it's just the way he built it. We haven't, it's the home, well, since about 1902. The property itself, 1893. You've heard the phrase, we have our roots here. Well, I guess that's it, and we've just grown to love it.
What is the feeling going to be, if the house has to be torn down? A lot of history is going to go with it.
Yes, a lot of history, a lot of pleasant memories, even childhood memories for a generation farther back than my generation, because my father and his brothers and sisters were reared here. And, it will be terrible. We'd really hate to leave it.
What kind of tree is that over there? I've seen a lot of them around.
That's a crepe myrtle tree.
And this one?
This is also a crepe myrtle, and it's very old. Oh, I'm sure it must be at least 70 years old. It's beginning to crack now whenever there's a hard wind. It's so very old.
There have been, since we've been out here in Fourth Ward, conducting this investigation, we've heard a great deal of speculation about what is going to happen to Fourth Ward and the land in Fourth Ward. Have you heard this kind of speculation? And if so, how does it concern you?
Well, I've heard several things, that some businesses would buy over in our area. We have the Cadillac place down there, and that's about the first big business that has come into the area, so that has made us wonder. And, if other businesses should buy, well, it would concern me in that I'd have to find a place to buy also or build elsewhere.
Are there some efforts that are going on now, though, to try to save Fourth Ward from this commercialization?
I heard just the other day that there's some man in Congress, the state Congress, who wants to help us save Fourth Ward. They'd like for homeowners and churches to hold on to their property, and then they would like to see better housing built for low-income groups.
You continue to talk about the corporations and maybe businesses in the downtown establishment. Do you think that once they've made a decision that there is nothing that, people in the community can do to save, this community?
I believe that there's very little we could do if they have made up their minds, because I think it would take a lot of money to fight them. If they really wanted, I think big business gets what it wants when the little man is concerned.
Does that bother you? You want to keep your house, and yet you know that if the decision has already been made to, bulldoze down all these houses, that you're just going to have to go.
I feel that it is bad that we community people are being disregarded in the decision. However, I know how big business works, but I think they should be a little fair with us and let us know what to expect, because some might not be prepared if what we think is going to happen does happen anytime too soon.
This woman had a real effect on me. I still thought Tom was wrong, but what gnawed at me was that there was still something which seemed absolutely right about what he was saying.
I really am not. I am just acutely aware of all the problems that people in Fourth Ward are facing, and have just really done a study on Fourth Ward for the past 4 or 5 years. This Fourth Ward represents a microcosm of all the problems that affect and afflict poor people. So I'm not setting myself up as an expert on Fourth Ward or a spokesperson for the people there. I think that what has to happen is that everybody has to get concerned about it, because while it's Fourth Ward today, it might be them tomorrow. And I think that the only analogy that I can think of is, as long as police brutality was a word that was used in the black community, nobody was concerned about it. It was just a bunch of niggas over there complaining about the police, beating them up and figuring that the police had a right to do this. But as soon as the police started arresting, young white people who, simply because they had long hair, then people understood the problem that black people had been complaining about all the time. You know, and I get him back, you know, the analogy.
Mrs. Cook had raised the question that Louis Welch had left out. If people don't want to leave, shouldn't they have a say in what happens there?
About the decisions. You understand what I'm saying?
What do you see, why are you making the film, Jim?
I felt, I suppose like a lot of people, that I didn't understand what was going on. I looked at this beautiful city that we live in, and I saw a lot of things that I didn't understand. And I felt that I was then very well equipped to try to find out, because I had all the questions and none of the answers.
Okay, now the movie has gone on for about 2 weeks. What do you see the material doing?
Right now, I think we've established a lot of the problem. You know, I think the material says, just sort of cries out that there's a problem. I don't see it as any proof of a plot. I'm willing to accept that as a possibility. So I think that's where we got to go and begin digging. Because I think really there's those things that underlie all of the city's functioning that affect all of us, as Tom's saying. We've got to. I want to make them bare so that we can see them. Because I do think we all ought to be involved in what happens to us.
But you want to see if there is a plot?
I want to understand what forces are at work, that's all. So I think that if we all know what forces are at work, we can at least prepare it in some way to make some decisions about our own lives in function of that.
And what's impressed you most about the Fourth Ward so far? Which part of it? Who? What person? Who did you feel most sympathetic to?
It's a hard one to answer. I think I was sympathetic to all of them. I found something to identify with all of them. Hell, I remember when we lived in a shack in Oklahoma back in the 30s. You know, and my dad had a nervous breakdown because there wasn't any way to keep the kids alive. I think we've all been through that route, you know, many of us anyway. You know, first when I went into the Fourth Ward, I was scared because although I'd shot film in Africa and related to Africans, I was afraid of the hostility that might be facing any white guy going in there. And the more we're in there now, the more I begin to realize that just how much we have in common, you know.
I think, you know, the one thing about, you know, Fourth Ward, you know, when any of us go in there, we all understand that we're just links in a chain.
Oh, better play. I'm going home to take my rest. Oh, yes. When I done done all that I could do down here, can't pray anymore.
I don't know what you think at this point, but I had my serious doubts about Tom's story. Still, I thought the people did feel pushed out. How come they had no say? To me, a neighborhood and a home was a sacred place. It didn't seem right.
On the other side, we're in that house. We shall lay down to sleep in peace, my brethren and my sister. We're going to lay down and take our rest. But I'm so glad, I'm so glad, I'm so glad that I know the Lord, He will make a way.
I had my doubts about Tom's story, but one thing he said still stuck. Those houses were being allowed to run down. Didn't the city have a housing code? Wasn't that supposed to keep those houses up? Why didn't the city force the landlords to fix up those houses? Could it be that the mayor was using the power of his office to level the Fourth Ward and prepare it for commercial development? Just what was this city's relationship to big business? In the next episode, you'll see what happens when we try to find out.